They began as experimental gyro gliders, before evolving into the most recognizable naval and attack platforms in the world. We're tracking the history of innovation behind every single aircraft from the Kamov Design Bureau, starting off with autogyros. Casca 1. Before Kamov built a single helicopter, they started here. The very first autogyro assembled in the Soviet Union, it borrowed ideas from Sierva and proved that Soviet engineers could master rotating wing flight. Casca 2. The lessons learned from the first machine went straight into this one. A more powerful engine and a refined airframe showed that the Kamov team was not standing still. The coaxial future was already taking shape. Next, Kamov A7. Most autogyros stayed well away from combat. The A7 went the other direction entirely. The first armed autogyro to enter military service anywhere in the world, it flew real missions during the Second World War. Then, Kamov AK. War demanded eyes in the sky over difficult terrain, and the AK answered that call. Compact enough to operate from tight spaces, it served as an observation and liaison platform where larger aircraft simply could not go. Moving on to light observation and single-seat helicopters. Kamov Car 8. Soldiers who saw it called it the flying chair, and the name fits perfectly. Nothing but an open frame, a pilot seat, and two spinning rotors above. It proved the coaxial layout could work even in the most stripped-down form imaginable. Up next, Kamov Car 10. The Soviet Navy needed eyes above its ships, and the Car 10 was Kamov's answer. Nicknamed the Hat, it was compact enough to operate from cramped ship decks and reliable enough to be trusted over open water. Kamov Car 11. Every generation of Kamov pilots had to learn somewhere. The Car 11 was that place, a light and forgiving design built to introduce new aviators to the unique demands of flying a conventional rotor machine. Next up, light utility and passenger helicopters. Kamov Car 15. This was the moment Kamov went from promising to proven. The first coaxial helicopter to enter mass production anywhere in the world, it demonstrated that the twin-rotor layout was not just clever, but genuinely practical for naval service. Then, Kamov Ka-18. 4 seats instead of 2, a bigger cabin, and a smoother ride. The Ka-18 took everything the Ka-15 established and made it more useful for the people who actually needed to climb aboard and go somewhere. Kamov Car 26. Kamov's most versatile creation may be this one. Swap the rear pod and the same helicopter becomes a crop duster, a cargo hauler, or a passenger transport. No other Kamov design served so many different masters so successfully. Kamov Car 115. A modern rethink of the light utility role that Kamov had been refining for decades, though this conceptual image inaccurately depicts a single rotor configuration instead of the signature Kamov coaxial rotor design. Updated materials and cleaner aerodynamics made it more efficient and easier to maintain than its predecessors in the commercial market. Now this is the Kamov Ka-126. The classic Ka-26 airframe got a dramatic upgrade when Kamov replaced the old piston engines with a turbine. All the modular flexibility that made the original famous carried over, now with significantly more power behind it. Kamov Car 226. The most modern expression of Kamov's modular philosophy. Swap the mission pod in minutes, and the same aircraft serves as an air ambulance, a cargo lifter, or a surveillance platform. Cities and remote regions alike found uses for it. Now let's look at medium and civil transport helicopters. Kamov Car 32. When the job demands lifting heavy loads in brutal conditions, operators worldwide call the Car 32. Firefighters use it to attack blazes from above, loggers hang timber from its hook, and rescue teams trust it in weather that grounds other aircraft. Kamov Ka-62. Kamov's most contemporary civil design breaks from tradition with a shrouded tail rotor that runs quieter and poses far less danger to ground crews. Sleek, modern, and built for corporate transport and offshore utility work. Now let's look at naval, anti-submarine, and maritime helicopters. Kamov Car 20. Before the Car 25 or the Car 27 ever flew, the Car 20 showed the Soviet Navy what was possible. The first Kamov design dedicated to hunting submarines, it established the template that the Bureau's naval helicopters would follow for generations. Kamov Car 25. For decades, the Car 25 was the Soviet Navy's primary carrier-based helicopter. Its compact coaxial design fit on ship decks that could never accommodate a conventional rotor, and it hunted submarines across some of the coldest seas on Earth. Then, Kamov Ka-27. The Ka-27 replaced the Ka-25 and immediately raised the bar for what a naval helicopter could do. It operates in sea states that force other aircraft to stay on deck, and its dipping sonar system makes it one of the most capable submarine hunters ever built. Kamov Ka-28. When foreign navies needed a capable anti-submarine helicopter they could actually buy, Kamov offered the Ka-28. Built on the proven Ka-27 platform, it carries sophisticated search radar and weapons that have earned it a place in multiple fleets worldwide. Kamov Ka-29. The Ka-29 took the Ka-27 airframe and turned it into an assault transport. Armoured, rocket-armed, and capable of delivering troops directly into a hot landing zone, it provided fire support while simultaneously offloading the soldiers it carried. Kamov Ka-31. The Ka-31 is Kamov's airborne radar picket, typically identified by an enormous flat antenna that folds under the belly to give a fleet advance warning of incoming threats by tracking dozens of targets from well above the horizon. Kamov Ka-40. An ambitious next-generation concept that aimed to leap beyond the Ka-27 with more powerful sensors and heavier armament. The technology it proposed was genuinely advanced, though the program never made it past the design phase. Then, Kamov Ka-252. Not a finished aircraft, but an essential stepping stone. The Ka-252 served as the flying test bed that allowed Kamov engineers to validate the systems and rotor technology that eventually became the Ka-27. Moving on to military transport and utility helicopters. Kamov Ka-60, a deliberate break from everything Kamov had done before. The Ka-60 uses a conventional tail rotor instead of the coaxial layout, built for speed and low-visibility troop transport in ways the classic twin-rotor design could not match. The next one, Kamov Ka-64, a misidentified aircraft image. The Ka-60 Ka-64 is a Kamov design, which is defined by its signature coaxial rotor system rather than a conventional single main rotor and tail rotor configuration. Kamov V60. The earliest design study that eventually grew into the Ka-60 program, engineers used it to explore reduced radar signatures and higher speed flight, laying the groundwork for a new generation of Kamov military transport aircraft. Next, Kamov 562, a civil transport developed by Kamov. It focused on reliability and straightforward utility, exploring whether modern design principles could serve commercial operators effectively. Now let's look at attack and combat helicopters. Kamov V80. This prototype was the seed of the Black Shark. Kamov used it to test the radical idea that one pilot could manage a fully capable attack helicopter alone, a concept that would redefine what a combat helicopter could be. Kamov V100. A combat concept that looked unlike anything flying at the time. Its unusual arrangement was meant to give it a performance edge over conventional attack helicopters, though the design never advanced beyond early development. Kamov Ka-50, the Black Shark, arrived and changed the conversation about attack helicopters forever. Two pilots managed the aircraft and all its weapons simultaneously, backed up by an ejection seat that blows the rotors clear before firing. Nothing else was like it. Kamov Ka-52. Kamov added a second seat to the Black Shark to chase export customers who preferred a dedicated weapons operator alongside the pilot. The firepower stayed identical, while the crew layout became more familiar to international buyers. Kamov Ka-52, the Alligator, placed its two crew members side by side rather than in tandem, an unusual choice that turned out to be genuinely effective. Both pilots share the same view of the battlefield, and coordinating an attack becomes dramatically more natural. Next on the list is experimental, compound, and testbed helicopters. Kamov Ka-Li2 Vintokil. Project X. Part helicopter, part something else entirely. This hybrid compound design challenged the boundaries of what rotating wing aircraft could be, exploring speeds and configurations that no conventional Kamov design had ever attempted. Kamov Ka-22. The Ka-22 was enormous by any measure, a converter plane that combined helicopter rotors with aircraft wings to carry massive loads across distances no pure helicopter of the era could match. It set world records and remains a remarkable machine. Now this is the Kamov Ka-26SS. Kamov engineers modified the familiar Ka-26 airframe into a high-speed research platform. They used it to push aerodynamic boundaries and gather data that would feed directly into the Bureau's next generation of faster, more capable designs. Kamov KA-102, a heavy transport concept that aimed to move troops and equipment at a scale beyond anything Kamov had previously attempted. It remained a study rather than hardware, but it showed the Bureau's ambitions reaching well beyond light naval helicopters. Now let's look at unmanned helicopters, UAVs. Kamov Ka-37. Long before drone warfare became familiar, Kamov was already exploring it. The Ka-37 was a compact, unmanned helicopter built for agricultural spraying and reconnaissance, an early sign that the coaxial layout was ideal for autonomous aircraft. Next, Kamov Ka-137. Shaped like a sphere with rotors on top, the Ka-137 looked like nothing else in aviation. It was designed to fly reconnaissance missions over areas too dangerous or inaccessible for crewed aircraft, and its unusual form made it remarkably stable in flight. Finally, we have Unbuilt projects, concepts, and mock-ups. Kamov Ka-34, a heavy-lift concept that would have given Kamov a serious presence in the large transport market. It never made it to the flight line, but the ambition behind it reflected how far the Bureau had grown from the tiny Ka-8 flying chair. Kamov Ka-35, an unbuilt early warning platform that would have extended the fleet's radar coverage far beyond the horizon. It carried a tilt-rotor configuration and was envisioned as the aerial guardian of Soviet naval task forces. Kamov Ka-41, a paper study for an aggressive next-generation combat scout. Even in concept form, the Ka-41 projected real menace, and its proposed performance figures suggested Kamov was thinking well beyond what the Ka-50 had already achieved. Kamov Ka-56, known as the Wasp. The Ka-56 was designed to fold down into a cylinder small enough for a single operative to carry and deploy alone. A covert insertion tool built for secret missions, it was one of the most unconventional concepts Kamov ever proposed. Kamov Ka-65, designed to eventually replace the Ka-27 as the backbone of Russian naval aviation, the Ka-65, represented here by an incorrect single-rotor concept image, carries the weight of that legacy while incorporating the most advanced sensors and systems Kamov has ever proposed for a shipborne helicopter. Kamov Ka-90, the Sikorsky S-72 RSRA, an experimental aircraft used to test various rotor systems. It represents a significant step in the history of vertical flight research. Kamov Ka-92, a high-speed civil transport concept that uses a pusher propeller at the tail to reach cruise speeds far beyond any conventional helicopter. It looked like something borrowed from the future of aviation rather than built in the present. The next one, Kamov Ka-118. Kamov explored what a helicopter without a conventional anti-torque tail rotor might look like in the Ka-118. Quieter, simpler, and potentially safer, it was a genuine rethink of rotorcraft fundamentals that pointed toward a very different kind of future. Kamov Vi-50, a Cold War-era attack concept with a coaxial rotor layout aimed at extreme speed for a combat helicopter. Ambitious and aggressive in its targets, it reflected how urgently Soviet designers were pushing to outpace Western military aviation.